So with that, I will turn it over to Sheela Patel, who's, I think, knows almost all the people in this room. She's barely needs any introduction. She is from Mumbai, and she is the founder and director of an amazing organization called Spark, which has been an advocate for the people of Mumbai, 50% of whom live in very, very precarious conditions. Sheela.
Thank you, Vajanti. This is the same presentation I'm going to make tomorrow with you, but it's going to have a different interpretation here. So I'm talking about all the people who live in the shadow of the formal city. And I speak not only on behalf of the urban poor, but I also speak on behalf of a range of people whose lives and whose, this one, okay. And here I want to say that in the last 1.5 days, we've been talking about beautiful buildings, fabulous designs. We haven't talked about where 50% of people who live in cities, I'm talking now about the global south, live in, where 93% of the structures in which they live are designed, financed, and constructed by themselves. State resources, subsidies, all you brilliant architects and planners have nothing to do with them. So I want to know, where do they come in this discussion? Yesterday, John said, oh, we like to work with them, but we have to deal with all the people who are the emitters. But you can't do this sequentially. Just like you can't deal with mitigation, adaptation, resilience, destruction, damage in separate ways. They are a continuum. You have to deal with them together. So in the work that I do, we began to work in Mumbai, where a small group of professionals made a deep commitment to work in partnership with social movements whose main job in informal settlements was to stop eviction. This was in 1984. I don't know how long I've been doing this. And what that did was produce a very interesting strategy in which we found that women-centered, local community-driven, aggregated at city, subnational, national level, produces a transformation of poor communities who live incrementally in amazing townships. There are towns within cities that have been ignored, that were previously outside the city, then the city overcame them, then they tried to evict them. That's like a game that goes on in cities. And what we tried to do was to create conditions by which these first, second, third, and fourth generation migrants transformed the way they looked at themselves, reformulated their self-image on the contributions that make their cities work, and to actually examine how their lives are connected with the city. In 1988, we began an Asian Coalition of Housing Rights, and in 1996, we formed Shack Dwellers International, in which today we have 33 countries and around 300 cities working together. So we operate locally, but we make noise globally. And this is what I'm trying to do here, to make all of you consider the implication of what happens to indigenous communities, rural communities who are pushed into cities out of the desperation that people like Anna and others spoke about. They are a mixture. They produce a new form of cosmopolitanism in informal settlements and transform the way they look at it. And what do they face? They face amenities and services that are non-existent. This is the pipe that produces water for the city, which goes through Mumbai's largest slum, but till 1984 did not provide water to the slum. How did the water come to the slums? All the people just pushed in pipes and took the water. The whole city got jaundice. Then we got water. So you talk about disruptions. And when you do not give people a choice for their voice and their representation and their right to participate in solutions, they produce negative disruption. So what we find is that people in all our cities are facing every single crisis, which we, until 4 years ago, thought were just development deficits. We got dragged kicking and screaming into the climate space. And we realized that every single reason why people were moving had a fundamental climate backdrop. There were floods, there were famines, there were man-made crises that made people move. And in many situations, the city moved beyond their village and made them up, but didn't give them infrastructure. And today, we're talking this year, there's a big discussion in the climate space about loss and damage. Well, for poor people, what the cities do to them and what climate does for them is the same. It destroys their habitat, it destroys their livelihood, and it produces the same level of complete devastation with no accountability for the loss of assets, the inability to recover from this, and to get any state or city support. So in this women-centered transformation process, we look at poor women in every single city who form the basis of the new knowledge negotiations that we do internally. People like me, many young professionals, work with community women to help them understand how cities function, what their rights and entitlements are, and how with their neighborhoods to produce data that can be disaggregated to the household in order to produce evidence to the city of what they require from the city. If the city says it's not our business, we go to the state. If it says the state is not our business, we go to the national. And then if the national says no, we come to the global. But the idea is more and more to create a citizenship entitlement to this aggregated volume of people who are going to grow exponentially, as we have seen in the COVID period, where so many unidentified city migrants suddenly popped up in so many of our cities, walking back home because there was no job in the city. So this is what we look like when we go to most places. A bunch of us also came here to the Vatican when the Pope invited us to meet social movements. And what we do is we collect data. It is household data. We use whatever open source in digital work we can do, but it's not digital first. It's hand-drawn, hand-numbered that gets digitalized. So every single household knows exactly what they do, and we collect different types of data. And that data has produced a campaign called Know Your City. We always challenge our mayors. Do you know every single slum in your city? Most of them only know some of the ones that are politically useful for getting votes. They don't know most of the cities. They don't know where people live. They don't know anything. And so what we do is that we invite opinion makers. And I'm just going to show you some of these pictures. The idea being not that we think that if President Clinton came, he's going to change our world. It's to create a confidence amongst communities to talk to anybody who is an opinion maker or a driver of change. To be able to not be a supplicant and say, I'm poor, I need help. To say, I am entitled to this. This is the evidence I have. These are the solutions that we have. Are you going to support and assist us? We go to different events. We do our own discussions. We invite our ministers. We don't let them talk. We make them facilitate. And so this is at the World Urban Forum, where we go in large numbers. This year it's in Poland. A bunch of us will go there. This is where we meet our ministers, our mayors. This is a long time ago in Vancouver where we met the mayor of Zimbabwe. And this is what I think you will enjoy. That first picture is the first time we made funicular roofing materials that takes 1/8 of the cement that RCC does and costs about 1/10. The women designed and executed it. All the men says it won't work. So what did the women do? They made the men sit on top of it. Until to demonstrate that that's the new material we're going to use. We also got women to design the kind of houses. We are pissed off with all of you architects and your architecture schools. You don't do anything with the informality in your city. So we said, okay, we build our own houses, we'll do our own design. So we built designs, and we do this in every city. And we invite our mayors, we invite our ministers, and we say, okay, now look at your procurement, look at your design, and whatever we are doing which is not there, you put it there. Now, here is the most disruptive thing we did in a long time. We built a house in the UN lobby. And you remember you were talking about how in the Biennale you had to have to deal with safety. The UN people told us nobody can go inside because it's not insured. Kofi Annan went and sat inside. Nobody could stop him. And we became very well known in the global space because it became a place where every delegation came and took a picture. 3.5, 4 years ago, a whole delegation of slum dwellers and waste pickers came to the Vatican. I have 45 messages here. Did you meet the Pope? I said, no. I met the people who work with him. And they said, send our prayers and our love. We felt very good. Of course, in all our federations, the Catholic leaders said, first. We are going first there. So they were all there. The idea in everything we do is not to create conditions in which our first shot is to fight. Our first shot is to make friends with our worst enemies. It started with mayors, architects, planners, scientists, finance people, because everybody ignored us. Over a period of time, some of our best friends are all these people. And what we find is that now that we've come into the climate space, we believe that everybody's life moves from dealing with anticipated disaster to resilience. It's a continuum for poor people. How do all of us support them? You don't have to only give some money to some philanthropy. The other thing we are saying, don't domesticate us with projects. Europeans and others, I want to plead with you. Make us your partner. Fight with us. Argue if our science and our technology is wrong. We will listen. We know how to argue. We know how to make representation. We know how to give you evidence. But don't patronize us. Don't pity us. And we are certainly not charity. We are going to be the people who are going to make your cities in the global south sustainable. We are the social infrastructure that saved all of you during COVID. Unfortunately, all the elite sing songs when they are in trouble and then forget all about it when the crisis is over. So right now, on behalf of all the social movements and all the communities of disenfranchised people, I want to bring their voices to the race to resilience, of which I am an ambassador of. And I am also part of the new Bauhaus, reminding everybody that this is not Fortress Europe. Many choices that you make impact the rest of the world. Your amazing, fantastic standards mess us up because our planners and our architects love everything you do, like our friend from Africa said yesterday, we copy everything you do, and everything you do wrong, we also do wrong. So I think that the time for a change of the real architecture of partnerships has to change. And more people like me, and rather than me, community leaders should be sitting here with you in large numbers, because we have a rule that the more disenfranchised you are, the more numbers you must have. So if somebody talks and you don't want to listen, just make a lot of noise and shut them up. You need to have the courage to allow people. So my plea to everybody is, don't go the old way and say prioritize one, prioritize. You have to do everything together. And there are enough stakeholders and actors to do that. Thank you.